Let's introduce some of the people that we are going to be talking to, and key among those, Ziyanda Ngcobo and Kanita Hunter are our reporters on the floor of this particular summit. And let's start with you, Ziyanda Ngcobo. You have been here for the better part of the day. What stands out for you? What are some of the key takeaways?
Well, I'd say, Xoli, about an hour or so ago, we heard from our International Relations Minister, Ronald Lamola, buoyant. You can tell that things are going well for this G20 presidency. In fact, the first question that he was asked by journalists is this issue around the handover process. Now, you'll know that we were breaking those news earlier on, that South Africa did deny the United States Embassy's request to send a junior delegation to come and receive the gavel. Of course, the presidency here has said in absolutely no uncertain terms will the president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, hand over that gavel to a charge d'affaires. So they're saying, well, they can come fetch it from the Dirco offices and they'll afford them the same level of respect that they have given them. This is what Lamola said.
As you can see, this is a leaders' summit. Heads of state, and the heads of state who are not here have designated appropriate officials who are engaging in this platform. And we want to differentiate between the handover and the deliberations that are currently happening. So those have been designated deliberations and so forth. So the handover must happen at the head of state level, or at least a minister who is properly designated by the President of the United States of America. So now that they have assigned a charge, we have said Dirco has equivalent officials of the charge. Hence, we welcome that they will now we will do the handover. We will do it at Dirco offices anytime from Monday.
Now, Xoli and Simon, I've heard you speaking about the declaration and the Argentinian delegation expressing disquiet, especially over issues related to gender-based violence and resolving that conflict in the Middle East. There was a question posed about whether or not then perhaps there needs to be an amendment of sort of this declaration, because by its very nature, there needs to be full consensus for it to be adopted. And Zane Dango, the Director General at Dirco, saying, well, not really. Yesterday's Sherpa meeting was unanimous, and the same way that the G20 Brazil declaration was adopted, the same will apply right here in South Africa.
The declaration, and I think one delegation this morning saying that there's elements of that delegation that they may not be happy with, just to say that this declaration was negotiated in good faith, and with one key member voluntarily absenting themselves from this. We had new dimensions to negotiate, and we did that very well, and through consensus, looking at what does consensus mean? Does it mean everybody in the room or those here present? And you'll see that our declaration talks about leaders who gathered in Johannesburg.
So there's still lots of questions, I think, and they're going to linger on for the next couple of hours until there's a better sense of what happens next insofar as the handover is concerned. There were questions around the G20 Summit and the impact that it has had over developing nations. You'll know that 4 global South countries have held the G20: Indonesia, India, Brazil, and now South Africa. But next year, we've been telling everyone this, that the United States is taking over. But what will this mean insofar as the aspects of continuity are concerned? Because matters of sustainability and dealing with inequality have been firmly at the top of the agenda for G20 meetings, least not since even the time Italy held the presidency as far back as 2021.
The impact of having 4 developing countries hosting the G20 presidencies, I think what has happened since Indonesia, India, Brazil, and with South Africa now concluding over the next couple of days, is that the issue of sustainable development has been solidified in the G20's agenda. The fact that we could get the kinds of agreements that the minister just pointed out on inclusive growth, the critical minerals at source, these are all not just our own deliverables, it's deliverables that come from India putting sustainable development on the agenda, Brazil putting sustainable development and inequality on the agenda, and us taking that same platform and concretizing it.
All right, so that declaration being made 24 hours before we'd all anticipated, but its full adoption still expected to take place tomorrow. But South Africa already claiming a victory. But let me take you now to Kanita Hunter, who I believe is standing by for a briefing with the French President Emmanuel Macron. Kanita?
Well, Zianda, the French President Emmanuel Macron is on his way here just outside the media center. He will be addressing reporters from around the world. Now, earlier today, he spoke about G20 countries being at risk as it struggles to tackle international crises. He spoke about the G20 maybe coming to the end of a cycle, and we are struggling to resolve major crises together around this table. The G20 is at risk and we are not collectively mobilizing towards some priorities. This was the warning from Macron when he spoke here at the summit earlier today. He's going to elaborate on that, speak a little bit more about what he meant by that statement when he eventually makes his way. His security is on standby as we wait for him to come from the Leaders' Hall here to the media center. Obviously, we know that there is strict security in that regard. Now, when he was asked yesterday about the U.S. boycott of the G20, he says that he does regret it, but it should not block us in the sense that it could not hamper the moving forward of this summit anyways. And that's why you saw that there was this consensus or this agreement by the French. They did not take the route of Argentina by expressing any support in that regard. And the pictures that you are seeing on your screen is us waiting for Emmanuel Macron to arrive, and he will be one of the first heads of state to brief us as the media on the sideline of this Leaders' Summit, an important one here in Africa, with Macron admitting to that in a conversation since he landed, saying that there has to be a rethink of the relationship between European countries and the rest of the continent. Back to you in studio.
Juanita Hunter, you are waiting right now for that media briefing by the French president, who is standing by, we understand, to brief reporters about how this day has gone. I know that Simon Marks has a particular question, interesting question for you.
Well, Juanita, one of the interesting things that will come out of this briefing, I suspect, is more information about the conversations that have been taking place on the sidelines of this summit about Ukraine, with European leaders thinking of traveling to Washington once again to confront President Trump about his plan to implement a peace process that European leaders suspect is far too tilted towards Russian President Vladimir Putin. Is there any indication of whether that is a topic that is on the minds of French reporters there as they wait for Emmanuel Macron to come and brief them?
Absolutely, because we know that Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney met with Emmanuel Macron to discuss the war on Ukraine as well as the situation in Gaza on the sidelines of the summit. Today, the Canadian government confirmed that Ukraine was on the agenda of that particular bilateral. And there's just some movement as the French president they're getting ready for the French president's arrival. But Simon, back to your question, that in an earlier bilateral meeting, Macron and Mark Carney affirming their support for Ukraine and stressed that any settlement to the war must involve Kyiv, respect Ukraine's core interests and provide security guarantees. This is what we heard from the Canadian government, and obviously we will take this opportunity. I'm sure there will be one reporter or the other to ask about this. And we know that the conversation around Ukraine was not only kept to this particular bilateral. There was the conversations of Macron with the UK Prime Minister, with the Chancellor of Germany, and with Zelensky. There was a phone call that took place as these leaders were in South Africa, discussing President Trump's peace plan, if you like, and the leaders agreed to coordinate with the partners and allies in the coming days. So they've been using the free time in between the official program to have these discussions, I assume, and come up with something more calculated and choreographed in some way. And definitely we'll try our best to put that question of Ukraine to the French president.
Kanita Hunter giving us the update from the floor of this G20 Summit venue. And as she put it earlier, Simon Marks, she is awaiting the president of France.